Coming up next on Access Framingham TV, my guests, Framingham residents Melanie Hardy and Raz Cunningham, share with us their vacation in Iceland last fall. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm your host, Jack Barron. Welcome to Travels with Jack. We'd like you to be a guest on this show to share with the audience your experience of a recent vacation, a business trip, a cruise, a special kind of travel that you did. Please call our offices at Access Framingham TV, 508-875-5434, and our associate producer will contact you to make arrangements. Today, my guests are Melanie Hardy and Raz Cunningham. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Well, let me see. I spoke to you a little bit, and both of you grew up in Rhode Island, left Rhodey, and moved here to Framingham. And I understand that currently you are both filmmakers, and Raz tells me you are in the middle of producing, directing, editing a feature film called Wander My Friends, which you both wrote, I understand, so you're really a very all-encompassing couple.
It's easy to work together when you live in the same house.
Dynamic duo.
And I understand the film is a story about three comic book writers who had their comic strip book sold off, and they begin to wander. And it's a comedy, so we hopefully will look forward to seeing it, and perhaps you'll have it here on Access Framingham TV. I don't know. I don't make those decisions, but we will see. And Melanie, you are also the operations manager here at Access Framingham TV, so maybe you will have a little bit of influence in getting the film shown.
Just a little.
A little bit. And together, the both of you, Raz and Melanie, traveled to Iceland in November of 2011, and you're going to tell us a little bit about that trip, and I am very excited. But fill me in quickly before Bill starts running the pictures, and tell me a little bit more about the movie you're putting together.
Okay, well, it's a comedy. It'll be shot locally in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. We're funding half of it ourselves and the other half through a website called Kickstarter, where anyone who wants to can donate money to the film, and of course they get incentives back. Depending on the level, they'll get artwork from the film, DVDs from the actual movie itself, online screenings, be invited to screenings, tickets to premieres, things like that. It'll be a fun time. It'll be a very fun time.
Have you been enjoying doing it?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. We haven't started shooting yet, but we're in development, so it's both easy and hard at the same time.
Now, have you done any films before like this? Any full-length feature films like this?
Well, we've both worked on feature films that have been made by other people, and we've made shorter films together. This will be our first full-length movie that we're funding ourselves, and we're basically at the top of the creative food chain.
Okay, now where did you get the stars from? I assume the three wandering comic book writers.
Mostly they came from friends or acquaintances that we had. There's still one role that's open for casting as of now, but most of the casting we've done is from actors who we've worked with, get along with really well, and are mostly local as well. You know, we're not getting any big name Hollywood people.
No, you got to start somewhere.
But I think it's almost better to have local people doing this local film, and the whole point of it is not to have a big ego about it. So
Well,
we're not bringing in any Hollywood egos either.
Well,
No.
they'll once they become big, then they'll have a Hollywood ego.
Then they'll have a
can have it,
Hollywood ego
yeah.
afterwards.
So you went to Iceland last November.
Yes.
Tell me, did you leave out of Boston? Did you leave out of Rhode Island? Tell me a little bit about how you made the trip, where you started, what airline you went.
Well, we actually went for Raz's birthday.
Okay.
He had told me a while ago, almost more than a year ago before this trip, that the one place he wanted to go in the world was Iceland. It was his #1 dream trip. And
You
so,
don't hear that too often, I know, but still.
So for his birthday, I planned a surprise 2-week trip to Iceland, and he didn't know where we were going until we got to the airport. So that's all you from there.
Yeah, we got to the airport. We flew Air Iceland, so she couldn't even tell me the airline because it was in the name.
Okay.
So you couldn't really even say that. Out of Logan, and it was a 5-hour trip.
That's not too bad.
No,
No.
it was fine. It was very fine. It was almost like I kind of like to think that we were time traveling because we left at. They're 5 hours ahead as well, and we left at 8 o'clock, and we got there at 8 o'clock.
Oh, all right.
So, yeah.
And had what per se was the reason you decided Iceland was where you absolutely had to be?
It's one of the youngest pieces of land and one of the most raw pieces of natural land, that's kind of an oxymoron, of land on the planet. And it's about the size of Kentucky or Texas.
Okay.
And on the same island country, you have active volcanoes and glaciers. And they're only a couple hundred miles apart, if that.
Okay.
And I wanted to see that before all the glaciers melt and we're stuck with just volcanoes.
So you got there and stayed in a hotel? Did you stay in a hostel? What kind of accommodations did you arrange?
Well, we were there for 2 weeks. The first 2 nights and the last 2 nights we were in Reykjavik, the capital, in the same hotel. I booked the same hotel twice. And then every other night we rented a car, we drove to a different city every day, explored the city during the day, slept there at night, and then the next morning would move on to the next city. And we drove all the way around the perimeter of Iceland doing that.
So how was the driving? You drive right-hand or left-hand side?
Right hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was just like the United States.
Yep.
And how did you find the people that you met? Friendly or?
Very friendly.
Very
Very
friendly.
friendly.
Very friendly. Very, very
Oh,
friendly.
okay, good. And tell me a little bit about Reykjavik, if you would.
It was a very interesting place to be. I can't lie and say it was a gorgeous city because a lot of the buildings there are more functional than aesthetically beautiful.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a seaside town or seaside city, one of the only 2 cities on the whole island, and a lot of the buildings had kind of like that gray sheet metal siding and
really?
cement sort of thing to it.
So
On the
looked like
inside,
the Soviet Union, like
A little classier
a
than
little
that.
classier.
A
Okay.
lot of the buildings are more modern. It's interesting when you think of Europe, you kind of think of, these ancient ruins and castles and very stylized buildings, but Iceland is so separate from the
Yes.
rest of Europe, and a lot of the buildings are more new. I'd say
Has a
from
Danish influence, doesn't it, if I'm not
a
mistaken?
very
little
strong Norwegian influence.
Okay.
There are no native Icelanders. I mean, people certainly are born there and live there their whole lives, but there was no indigenous population to Iceland. It's all immigrants from Norway, Denmark,
really?
Sweden, or other countries.
Okay, I did not know that. And what about the cuisine? Tell me a little bit about the restaurants you went to.
Icelandic cuisine. That's a very interesting. It's very fish-based, which is great, because I love fish,
Okay.
and that's wonderful. The restaurants that we went to outside of Reykjavik, the large city, and what was the other?
Akureyri.
The other large city. Most of them are above people's houses. They're small. They're diner-like, and all of them seem to have the same diner food. They don't have very large menus. They're very Americanized.
Well, not necessarily Americanized, but
What we would consider American food. Well,
But
Yeah.
limited menus.
limited menus.
Cheeseburgers, pizza.
Burgers and pizza,
really?
pasta, soup. And at first we were a little taken aback, but it seems to be pretty typical wherever you go in Iceland. And we were told by one of the more eloquent speakers who we met that it's mostly due to the fact that a lot of the food that they don't grow much food. They have a large fishing industry and they have a large lamb industry. But most...
Yeah, I knew the fishing, I knew, and I'm hoping perhaps Bill will have a few pictures of the fishing. But I knew they had a big fishing business. But lamb is interesting. They raise a lot of lamb.
A lot of lamb.
A lot of lamb.
But a lot of the food that they raise or catch
is
exported, and the food that they import, it's very expensive. So the prices in restaurants are very high, and they know this.
You did find it expensive.
It was a expensive comparatively. I mean, when you look at, say, you'd go to a restaurant and order, say, a cheeseburger, and you would be paying, even in a moderately priced restaurant, you'd pay about $25, the equivalent in American.
Oh, okay.
For
That
maybe,
sounds high to me.
For maybe a $15 worth cheeseburger or a $12 worth cheeseburger. And that was typical no matter what you were ordering.
How were the hotel prices?
The hotels
Good.
Were very, very reasonably priced.
okay.
We did go off season 2.
Yes. November is kind of a weird time to go to Iceland.
Okay, explain to me a little bit about what is considered, why was it off season? A little colder or?
The weather is actually very similar to New England weather. When you look at it on the map, they're kind of equal on what's that?
Equator, on the latitude.
In the latitude, there we go. So the weather was mostly similar. I mean, we went in November. There wasn't any snow, but it was kind of rainy, a little chilly.
Okay.
We had to wear a jacket wherever we went. But in Iceland, you're so, because of the island's position, it's one of those places in the world where during the summer, the days go all day, and at night, you know, there's barely any darkness, and in the winter, it's reversed. So,
so that's why the season. So people want to be there when it's bright.
People want to be there when it's bright. While we were there, you know, the sun would rise around 9 or 10 a.m. and it would set around 4. So we would have a very condensed day to go out and take pictures. We'd still go out once it got dark, and we'd get up before it got light. You know, it didn't ruin our day, but it did reduce the amount of things we could go and do outside.
I got you because of it. Now this is one of the photos. This is what that we're looking at. It's quite monumental. It looks like out of a film, actually, that you'd see.
Yeah.
This is a cathedral in Reykjavik, which was erected after, I think, the Second World War?
Yep, I believe it was World War II.
It's, yes, World War II. It is, I believe it's entirely made out of cement as well. And you can pay to go up in the tower. It's the tallest point in the city.
Oh, there's an elevator there. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And you can pay to go up, and it's the tallest point in the city. And this is inside.
Wow.
It's very, 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 very uniquely lit. It's like, the walls are not golden, but the lights were, and it made it look very nice.
Now, was that done by a famous architect or somebody in?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I seem to recall being told that it was made by some sort of collaborative friendship effort post-World War II between the United States and Iceland. I don't know that any particular famous architect was involved, although with a design like that, I'm sure somebody was, and maybe he'll find me and scold me.
Now, I'm looking here at some mountains, it appears, over a bay or something. Is this any particular famous range of mountains? Is this a volcano or anything?
No, nothing like that. This is about 45 minutes outside of Reykjavik after we had just left the first day outside. This is about 9 o'clock in the morning, I think, maybe 10.
Yep.
And you can see that the sun is just rising over on the right. It was just very, very blue and pristine.
It looks beautiful.
A lot of the bodies of water we came across would look just like that. It was so clear, it would be like a mirror of whatever was on the sky.
Really? This is your rent-a-car?
This is our rent-a-car about 9 days in.
I see you weren't at Scrub-A-Dub.
We did go eventually. We did go eventually. I couldn't take it anymore. And they do have, because this is actually quite common in the country, all of the gas stations do have free water for you to spray on there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Why,
So-
the cars get very dirty?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very dirty.
From what?
This road is an example of that, actually.
Okay, explain
There's-
to me.
Outside of the two large cities, most of the roads are unpaved. There's one large road that goes all the way around.
Really?
Called the Ring Road, is what they call it. They built it after the war, after World War II. The American government and army offered to build it, but they said, no, 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 we're not going to do it. Don't do that. We'll do it. The Icelanders. So it's 2 lanes, goes all the way around the island. You can cut, past someone on the opposite side of the lane, but roads that go off of that, if it's not a main road, it doesn't have a sign, and it's all gravel. It seems that they have the intent to pave it at some point.
Do they get a lot of snow in the winter?
Yes, yes, they do.
So what about the plows? Do they dig up these gravel? I would imagine they must dig them up.
I think they have a system. I don't know what it is. I mean, when we went there, everyone was really, that we had stayed with in terms of hotels, all of the innkeepers and things like that, were very happy that we get to go on an off-season that didn't have any snow.
Okay.
They were very surprised to have snow. So we didn't really get the full winter experience. We got the temperature experience. We didn't get the snow experience.
Not so much snow.
Yeah.
When you say the temperature experiencing, well, tell me what this beautiful photo is.
We're on the Ring Road up on the right there. You can see part of it.
Okay.
This
was in the northern fjords. This was just about as close to the north part of the island as you can get. And we took this picture because you can see, and it gets faint as it was foggy and misty. But we were on the road, so from where you are on the road, you could see the road kind of winding up this cliff face all around the coast.
Now, a crazy question. Some of it looks like it was a beach. Did you see anybody swimming? Do they
No.
swim in the summer?
They do swim, but we didn't see anyone there. I don't think they'd swim in the northern part, though, because those are actually Arctic waters.
Okay.
So that would be pretty bad. This is actually just around, just before we got to that point. This is one of the gravel roads that goes around the fjords. And it was actually so foggy and misty that that's maybe 20 feet out from the car. And you can't, it's safe, you could go walking and it would clear as you go, but you really couldn't see that far.
So no street lights or anything?
No.
No street lights outside of the cities at all.
Okay.
This is on the northernmost part of the country, one of the fjords. It's outside, the town name eludes me.
Eglistarter?
Yes, Eglistarter. Sure, why not? That's how you pronounce it. And
I won't argue with you, Melanie.
I studied a little Icelandic before we left.
Oh, do they have their own language?
They do. It's very close to the original Viking.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That part there, that little rock out there at the end, was actually the northernmost part of Iceland, and after that it's the North Pole.
So the Vikings hailed to us from Iceland?
They went to Iceland.
Okay.
The Vikings came from Norway or Scandinavia in general. Some of them, the typical migration story, there was a religious political dispute. A bunch of them said, we're out of here, got in a boat, and they landed in Iceland. And they actually, their culture isn't quite as old as, it's a little bit older than the American colonization, but not by a lot.
Okay.
It wasn't colonized until, AD. There was no BC colonists in Iceland.
Now this is the Ring Road?
Yes.
Okay.
As you can see, there are no guardrails. That is a straight shot down. So
Into the ocean.
Into the ocean, so you must be careful when driving.
Did they warn you ahead of time? Did they?
There are signs that warn you.
Now this is one of the sheep herds, I'm assuming?
Yes, this is a horse and sheep. This is a small amount. We took this because when we went near them, they all looked at us like they were going to murder us. It was very creepy.
One of the unique things about Iceland is that a lot of their animals are free range. Farmers can have acres and acres and acres of land, and they'll put a very cheap 2-wire fence out to mark their property. But mostly sheep, but also horses and a couple other kinds of animals are free to roam wherever, and then they just come out and find their own sheep when it's time to shear them or harvest them or whatever.
So not what you would say a very extensive farming technical like the United States would have with lots of fencing and...
Well, it's just a different system, and it's interesting because when you speak to some of these farmers, they they find it hard to understand how our system would work.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, there's so few people who live in Iceland that they can just own these enormous tracts of land and just say, well, all the sheep on it are mine, and they're all fine with it. You know,
they're not nitpickers either.
No.
And they live, okay, this is back on the ring road.
Yes, this is a bit more towards the south, towards the end of our trip. You can see in the mountain range in the back, that little strip of white looks like a cloud, but it's in fact part of a glacier.
Oh, okay.
And there's the rest of it. That is
That's a little bit closer.
That is looking north towards the inner part of Iceland, which is not very inhabited. Most of the people live on the coast. You can get there, but only in the summer and with special cars.
Only in the summer.
Yes. That's more of the glacier, just melting off there.
So what did the glacier look like? A big ice?
A big sheet of ice. This, for example, this looks like a waterfall right here. It's just a glacier.
It's just frozen solid. Yeah.
Frozen solid.
Did you talk to people up there about global warming and what their concerns were?
Everyone up there seems to be on board with climate change. They're fairly. They know what's going on. They see it every day. They've noticed dramatic changes.
They have.
There's one innkeeper that we stayed with who spent a lot of time in America. I think he went to UCLA actually for television.
Yeah.
So he was very well versed in English and very well versed in American culture, and he's aware of the differences between what half of America believes and what all of Iceland believes.
So they were concerned, and they had seen their
very
glaciers.
concerned.
Well, I think a lot of people inquire, you know, there may not be sure. They presume there is global warming. I'm not sure everyone is convinced that it's due to the burning of fossil fuels. I think that's where the main controversy may be, from my understanding. I'm not a climatologist. Okay, this is more. Oh, these pictures, though, are very good. Beautiful.
Thank you.
This is what? Is this still the ocean, or is this a freshwater lake we're looking at?
We're actually between an ocean and the lake right now.
Oh, so that was a good question.
Yeah, that's freshwater runoff from the glacier that you can still see in the background. This is towards the northern part of the island. One of my favorite band, Sigur Rós, is from Iceland, and they shot a music video here.
Really? So you wanted to see that?
I didn't know. Well, we didn't know we were going to come across it, and I watched this music video religiously when I was younger, and I was like, "This is it." And you know, I looked it up when we got back.
And it was.
And it was. This was the part of the fjord they shot it in.
This is one of our hotels.
Oh, okay.
It was quite funny because, again, I mean, we were there in the off season, but there were times when we would stay. Sometimes we'd stay in a small place, or sometimes we'd stay in a much larger place like this, which is similar to a commercial hotel you'd see in the United States, but it was almost entirely empty. And the family that owned it was there, and we were there. And that was about it.
There was a traveling woman, a woman traveling for business.
And yeah, one woman on a business trip who we didn't really
So what
run
did they
into.
say to you? In the summer they fill up?
They do
yes.
fill right up.
In the summer they fill right up. Summer
This
you have to
one-
reserve well in advance.
This one actually had little cabins in the back of it as well. This was an absolutely beautiful hotel. Service, but the hotel was great. Ice flow, that's what this is.
And there's, and we have a few more pictures of this same location.
Oh,
Yep.
wow, look at this.
This is a famous lake in Iceland where one of the largest glaciers breaks off into pieces, and the pieces float around in the lake.
Okay.
And it's very, very pretty. They call it carnival ice.
It does look beautiful.
We actually ended up, just by chance, seeing one piece of ice crash into another, because we didn't know what it would sound like. It was a large piece, and I didn't see it. Melanie had actually. She's like, wait! I want to see what happens. So one piece of ice. It was a chain reaction, very slow moving, but it had a lot of power behind it. Very slow moving. Finally hit the other ice. Huge crunch. That one pushed up. Huge crunch to the next piece, and domino effect. And they just right out to the ocean.
It was
very,
really
very
cool
cool.
to see.
Did you see animals there in the glacier?
Yes, there was a, what was it, a seal?
We saw a seal or a sea lion or one of those animals. It was hard to get a good look at it.
Right around here, actually. I couldn't get a picture because, unfortunately, we couldn't get close enough. It kept going underwater.
And what about penguins? Were they penguins up there?
And there are puffins, which are part of the penguin species.
I think Maine has puffins.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
We were told by pretty much everyone there that I really like that picture. But pretty much everyone there that we could see the puffins around. We didn't see any, unfortunately.
But we saw cranes. We saw other kinds of ocean type birds.
I got
Killer whales we saw, or not killer. We did see whales.
We did see whales. Yes.
Swimming in one of them. This is next to the ice floe again. Just I wanted to see what the capture what the ground looked like. It's very smooth stones.
that have, now these are not glaciers, these are regular mountains?
These are mountains, yes.
Okay.
This is the top of one of the fjords looking back towards the mass of the continent. I'm not sure which, this is the town that had the Christmas store. We're on the opposite side of that.
Oh, that was on the opposite of Akureyri then.
Yes, okay. This is midway through our trip. It was like, this felt very much like we were in Lord of the Rings looking at these mountains.
How many people would you say live in Iceland?
Funny story, a little over 300,000, and we discovered this because on our first day there we went to a hamburger restaurant, and while we were there they had a population counter that they moved up or down, and every time it moved up once while we were there, everyone in the restaurant clapped because a new Icelander was born.
Really?
Yeah, it was very, very fun.
So only about 300,000 people. That's not a big...
No, it's not at all. A lot of their media is actually from the BBC and what America sends them. While we were there was an international version of The Daily Show, which we didn't know that they did that.
Oh, so you had American TV on the... in the hotel?
Yes.
Well, they only have about one channel.
Of their own.
Of their
really?
own.
Yeah.
And
there's an opportunity.
There you go. Move right in.
but they just...
From Rhode Island to Reykjavik.
They don't have the capacity to be making all of their own television programs.
Okay.
With such a small population, and most of them are doing other things.
So they
like
have, what, a local news?
They do have a local news,
I was gonna say.
but they do have a lot of opportunity because a lot of television shows and movies go to film there. I know the week after we left, HBO's Game of Thrones went to go film there, which
really?
stinks
So
because I wanted to see it, but...
So there is a film industry there that's active,
that's imported there, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they do make a lot of music videos, though, so there is something.
They're very eager to invite other people to come and film. And as you have seen from the picture so far, it's a very beautiful place.
Oh, it does? Well, either that or your pictures are just super good.
Column A, column B.
Now, this must be what, Reykjavik?
No, this is
the other city.
This is the city,
yes. Yes. As we were driving away, there was a kind of an open cliff face where you could park and take pictures of the city, but really there's not too much of the city that isn't in this picture, which gives you an idea of how small cities in Iceland really are.
And behind it were again just mountains, but I noticed like the houses ended and then it became just field.
Yep.
It's pretty much, I mean, a lot of the villages and towns are built on the fjords, which are carved out inlets of water by the glaciers. So that's, the port towns essentially. And you could drive around. Sometimes you drive around the land part. Terrible that I can't remember what it's called. Or you can drive through it with a tunnel. This took us an hour to drive across, this picture right here. It was just an open field. This is right before, I unfortunately didn't take any pictures of it because we were just in awe of it, right before a sandbar. It had to be, I think, maybe the world's largest sandbar. It was insanely long. I'm probably wrong on that, but it took also an hour to get through.
Now, when you say you drove through it, was there a gravel road again on this, or you drove?
The ring road. It was still the ring road that went around it. It didn't go, I should say through, it didn't go through the field. It went around right where the mountains end and the field begins. That's, a lot of it is right along there.
Did they talk to you at all about their financial problems they were having up there with their banking system?
They did, actually.
Oh, okay. Tell our viewers, if you would, a little bit about what you know.
Well, one of the innkeepers in particular, the one we mentioned before, who spoke English very fluently, he was very vocal about that. I think
a right-wing Icelandic?
Well, I don't know. I don't know necessarily what his politics were, but I think the overall sentiment was that they don't necessarily blame anyone for the issue, but Iceland was hit the hardest, and they were hit first in the economic collapse. They were hit even before the United States, and they suffered more. Their system of currency is actually on the way out, and
They may be trading it for the Canadian loonie.
they're thinking
Oh,
of
really?
trading it for the
'Cause they
Canadian
don't like the
dollar
euro.
rather than the euro. Right now, their system of currency is the krona, which is it's essentially about worth a penny. It's I think worth about 74 cents.
Okay.
It's
70
0.74 to the penny.
Oh, really? Oh,
And so, but it's just the one unit. So every time we went to pay for something, it would be like, well, it's 5,000 krona, which is like 5,000 pennies.
I got
Is how we had to keep telling ourselves to
convert.
You know, when you
I always recommend when you're traveling abroad, use a credit card because
We did do that a lot.
Converts
but we
it
wanted to-
automatically, it's
we-
easier.
We wanted to have some cash because not everyone took a card.
right.
Oh, you did find they didn't all take credit cards.
Some of the smaller towns didn't have any hookups.
Now, is this a particular mountain or something?
Is
Yes.
that's
This is Meaviton.
that's
Lake
the
Meaviton.
Meaviton crater?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh,
this isn't a crater. We do
Oh.
have crater pictures. This is
My
at Lake
mistake.
Meaviton. We're actually at the north end looking down south, so you can't really see the lake. But this picture is our favorite from the trip. But
It looks kind of like a giant satellite garage or something.
it does a little bit.
Yeah.
It really does.
If you do a sci-fi film, you can make that the satellite
There you
garage
go.
and have it
Rise
jet
up
up.
out of there.
I think that's the view from our car of the same.
And the car looks cleaner,
Yes,
so you
this
must
is
have washed it
earlier
off.
on. No, this is before it got really dirty,
Oh, really?
actually.
I think it's actually in, this is Lake Meaviton, which was in the first third of our trip. And I think while we were there, that was when the car got really dirty.
Now explain to me up above, I don't know if that's a crater, but
It is.
It
It
is,
is.
okay.
That is a crater, a volcanic crater, a small one,
Okay, and now the volcano was not
active.
Active?
At the time.
There were some active volcanoes, not erupting, but active.
Active.
And
Oh, okay, I've got
Not
you.
that one.
They
That one
tell
was
you,
dormant.
in other words, stay away. It's
There are signs, yeah.
yeah,
oh, they did have some. Okay.
Lake Meaviton, where all these pictures are taken here, and there's me compared to one of the largest crater on the island and one of the largest in the world.
It's called Earth's Dog Bowl, and to give you an idea of how big it is, we are still maybe about a kilometer away from it, and that is just the right third of it.
Oh, so
It's
huge.
enormous.
It's quite
And is that
large.
active?
I don't think
It's-
so.
It is
Is it?
not active, but it's part of an active chain.
Okay.
Lake Meaviton itself in the area, it doesn't have a large population, but it's one of the most geothermically active areas, and they have 2 large geothermal power stations
Oh.
that harness the energy of the still active volcanoes
That's
to
a volcano right there.
transport power around
Really?
the
So,
island.
and is that how a lot of the electricity in Iceland
I think
is
90% of
created?
it.
Yep, about 90% of it.
So, did they mention my own interest, is it an inexpensive way to get power?
Very inexpensive.
Very inexpensive.
So electricity
I mean,
up there is inexpensive?
You have to have a volcano to do it, but
it's still there.
It's very, very cheap comparatively, and also most of their water supply is geothermally heated. So not only are they saving on
It
electricity,
does have a sulfury smell to it.
but they're saving on the cost of heating water as well. Hot water comes very easily there.
Really?
This lake, this is actually frozen. This previous picture and this picture, these are actually frozen, smaller inlets of Lake Meaviton, and it didn't look like it was frozen. We actually had to go up and check.
No, it doesn't.
And those 6 buildings are
That's the town.
the bulk of the town.
Oh, okay.
Our hotel was just to the right of that.
Okay, that's the town.
This is one of the signs warning you.
Oh, it looks like something we'd see at IKEA.
Pretty much.
That is a warning: do not touch. We were in.
See, and I thought it was a line of sofas.
This is at the entrance to the sulfur fields.
Okay.
Where we went, where they were no volcanoes per se, but really, the ground was really hot. You could kind of see the earth bubbling in
Like
some
that.
sections, and large steam vents. So the sign was warning you not to poke them.
So now is this, oh wow, what is this?
This is what comes from those steam vents.
That's a section of boiling earth. It's not lava,
Boiling
but it's close.
earth.
Yes.
Wow.
That's into one of the pits there. You can see.
Now, you seem like you're fairly close to this. So
Yeah, this picture is
did
actually
you have a
bit
tour
further.
guide at all?
Nope.
Really?
We had a book. That was
You
it.
had a book. Did you, if you were to recommend me to go, would you recommend that I get a tour guide?
No.
Oh, really?
Just,
Okay.
You'd be able to make it around. I mean, you could if you want.
No, but
you-
I'm saying, I understand you're young and innovative couple.
I don't know about
But if you said somebody like me, would you say I need a tour guide? But it sounds like you don't think I would.
Well, I did a lot of research before we left. We went in November, and
You didn't notice you on the computer there all of a sudden while
She
you
was
were
very
looking at
clever
Iceland?
about it. She did most of it here, actually, while she
okay.
was on her lunch breaks.
Yeah, I did a lot of work on my lunch breaks, or I'd come to work early and do it here.
So you really kept it a secret?
I did. I worked really hard to keep it a
What
secret.
about packing clothes for the trip? What'd you tell him?
Well, he knew we were leaving, and I told him that we were going somewhere with weather similar to where we were.
And he thought you were going to fly him up to Bar Harbor, Maine.
I thought Ireland for a little while,
really?
honestly,
Okay.
because she had bought a guidebook, and I hadn't seen the guidebook, but it had shown a little bit through the bag, and I saw an eye. I did not think Iceland, because I didn't think I'd get a dream of mine to come true that soon in my life. So.
But I was also clever, and I had most people knew where we were going. A lot of his friends and family. Although I didn't tell his parents because I knew they would spoil it.
They would blow it in a second.
His parents are not secret keepers, but a lot of his other friends and family.
Hi, Raz. How are you? Did you go to Iceland yet?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how that conversation would have gone.
But his other more secretive friends and family would say, "Oh, we promise we won't tell. Just whisper where he's going." So I told quite a few people where we were going well in advance. I mean, I had the flights booked in July, so I knew where we were going for a long time, and everyone kept the secret. But once I knew he had kind of a clue of where we were going, I kind of took advantage of that and convinced some people to trick him into thinking we were going to Ireland, so he'd be extra surprised.
By the way, Ireland's a nice trip. Not
We'll go
nearly as interesting a landmass as this, but
this photo here is still at the steam fields. Those were two other individuals who were wandering around.
now
for
when you say
size
the steam
comparison.
fields, is this where they do geothermal?
Right across the street, actually.
Okay, and what do they do? Well, let me have you show this photo first. And then.
This is
It's more of the boiling earth. It's kind of like
Muck.
a wet clay mud sort of.
That boils.
And it boils. This is it's kind of hard to tell because it's a still photo, but
But it's
right in the
bubbling.
center, you can see kind of like a peaked flower shape. That's a bubble that just popped.
Now, explain to me, if the best you can, the geothermal electric. What do they do? Plant pipes into the
We might
heated
actually
soil?
We
have
do
some
have some pictures later on of. We actually couldn't take any of the plant, but essentially
This is a lava
that's another steam vent.
steam. Okay.
But essentially, what they do is I'm not sure how, but they do drill into the earth.
Okay.
They take the heat somehow. It's a very small facility, actually.
I would assume from the look of it that they do it with turbines.
Okay.
That somehow the steam that's
Well, the
generated.
heat, they
in the
may
heat.
pull the heat from the earth, have it create steam, water,
Yep.
steam, which then spin the turbines and create the power.
Yeah, I would think so.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is.
And so it's essentially a very clean way to power the country
Yeah.
by
I think
using
so.
your natural resources.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Theirs is on top of a volcano, so that's interesting.
Yes, this is me pretending to touch a steam vent. We
Okay.
weren't supposed to, but I'm pretending to do it.
The two people in front of us touched it.
Now,
and
this
they were
is what, a
surprised.
river?
Yes, this is just a small river down by a picnic area that we went to. Very small, but it was from a glacier. It's glacial runoff.
Do they drink? Well, let me have you tell us what this is.
These we saw all over the place. This is where we start getting into the pictures of the moss.
This is moss.
Yeah, well, these stones, these are markers which they built to mark where they were going to build the road and old paths that they used to take. But these stones are covered in moss. That there aren't many trees in Iceland, actually, and that's kind of a controversy that they're having. Do we bring trees in, or do we leave the moss? This moss grows over rocks, because they're most of them volcanic rocks, full of minerals. But
And what do they do with the moss? Do they ever?
I don't know if they do anything
Sheep
with
eat
it.
them, but
Oh, the sheep eat.
Yeah.
it's almost like grass. I mean, there are certainly areas where there is grass, but
Some areas it's a foot thick.
Well, it looks, you talk about Ireland. Ireland has fields of sod, and it has a similar look to that.
Yeah, we got out. This is where we got out and actually we just decided to go walking through it. It was in the middle of nowhere, like most things, and there was one part where it was a foot deep. This is my favorite picture. This is a mailbox.
in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, in like
The color here.
a bit of a color correction issue there.
I think this is a fjord picture.
This is a fjord picture. On the top, right above that, on the top, that white, that's just clouds. Above that is pure blue sky. Each fjord kind of has its own little climate.
Really?
Yeah, we actually we left one fjord and through a tunnel. 10 minutes later, we emerged here. So we left perfectly blue sky and emerged to a cloudy sky.
A fjord is like the opposite of a peninsula. It's where the water cuts all the way into the land, and the land makes kind of a U shape around
So
it.
the fjord itself is a peninsula of water.
Yes. That's a good way to think of it.
Yep.
And so the weather would just get
Wow.
trapped in there.
Look at this. This looks a little bit like the Colorado River cutting through the stone.
There's a you can't quite see it, but there's a very pretty little waterfall back
I see
there.
it. It doesn't look so little though, Mel.
Well, it's little compared to some of the other ones
Oh,
we
okay.
have pictures of
Thousands.
later. And I mean, it just you can see where it comes out. It's just a very small stream, but it cut through those rocks.
Well, over what, a couple of million years
Well,
now.
yeah, they've got plenty of time.
And this is what, a gravestone or something.
It's hard to tell the scale from this picture. This is actually a giant monument to the gentleman who wrote the original Icelandic parliament and laws and code of ethics.
Oh, okay. And more moss.
More
moss. These
This is the moss up close.
Oh, it's got what, like a little flower almost.
yeah. It had kind of like a prickly-ish feel to it, but it wasn't
okay.
sharp.
So it's not moss like we have here.
No,
No.
it's yeah.
That's a bit more mossy.
Some of the moss flowers.
Kind of moss, more moss, a little further away.
Did you see any golf courses there?
No golf
No.
courses that we
Okay.
saw.
I'm sure they must have one or two, but
we
we
didn't
didn't
see
run
it.
into any. But again, we were there out of tourist season, so they weren't really advertising.
I'm going to bring you back a little bit while we look at the ring road. You were talking about the financial climate where
Yes.
some of our viewers may know Iceland had kind of a financial collapse and
Yep.
was very much indebted to the British banking system. And my understanding, I know some people from Iceland, is that a lot of them had financed their home mortgages in Japanese yen. And because the Icelandic money had collapsed, the yen didn't care. They had to still pay back in a very much deflated krona to the Japanese banks, so they were very angry about that also. That was a decision some people had made because at the time the interest rates from Japan were much lower than the krona rates in Iceland. So what did this gentleman tell you about issues with banking and the kind of financial collapse?
He talked a little bit about the banking system. He didn't mention anything about the Japan
That's all right.
home loans, but I'm not surprised to hear about it. It's just he didn't mention it. But he did talk a bit about the way the banking system works. And one thing he did express was that he didn't feel like it was fair that the people of Iceland were being held accountable for what the banks of Iceland did. And that's very much the case there, is that the people are being held accountable for the Icelandic banks rather than the Icelandic banks being held accountable for the Icelandic banks.
And the Icelandic banks kind of were what, all bankrupted, I think. weren't
They were, a lot of them did go under because a lot of them were invested as well with the American banks that did crash. And that actually kind of happened more recently. We learned that the way their government is set up, just very quickly, is they have a president and a prime minister.
Okay.
And their prime minister is actually the one who is in charge, but for the first time, they're on their 6th president since this new constitution was put in place. And this president that's currently there now, they had said to us, may have been put in place by the banks to roll back these laws.
Really?
But this president is now enacting powers that are controversial because it was supposed to be just a figurehead position modeled after the Western model.
So this may be a template, is what it sounds like, as to what they're doing in Italy with Prime Minister Monti, who essentially the European Union banks put in place in Italy to bring things to a change there, and again in Greece, where they're in a virtual bankruptcy. And
Yeah, things are not good in Greece.
It very much could be the case.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Iceland was the first one really to take the hit as a
Yes.
country. And this picture is?
This is a good example of the moss landscape, kind of extending out as far as the eye can see. You've got the moss, kind of a moss forest almost,
Yeah,
and then
it's quite unique.
those large cliffs going up to more moss.
Okay. This, I'm now saying, is the big city.
This is
This is
Reykjavik.
Reykjavik.
Okay, we're in the big time.
Yes.
So you could kind of see, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the buildings are more functional. They do the brightly colored roofs, which I think is quite cool. But again, you know, this is a large chunk of the city, and it's not very big.
This is from the top of the cathedral. That was the first picture.
Oh, I love that cathedral.
Yes. Sheep.
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 And you can just see, I mean, that fence in the very front of the picture, that's the fence that you see everywhere. That's the fence that's meant to hold in the animals.
Meant to. Those they laugh at it. They
They can jump over it, they walk
Do
on
they
the road.
name them at all? How do they designate that's my sheep?
I never saw a branded sheep. Again, I think there's just so much land and everyone's so far apart that if a sheep is on your land, it's yours.
Okay.
And they just, you know,
If you hit it, it's yours. We know that.
Yes, if you hit a sheep, well, because the sheep do wander into the road. If you hit it with your vehicle, you are
own it.
responsible for paying for it. But
For the sheep.
for the sheep,
And what about the car damage?
Well, that's
that
something
too.
else entirely.
Did you hit any sheep?
No.
I'm whispering.
No, we
we never hit any sheep. We did see some animals in the road, and if we have time, we might get to some pictures that we took out of the car window of animals in the road. But
This is just another expanse that we had to drive across. That took us 2 hours. This is
Barbecue.
right outside one of our hotels. It was actually a spa hotel that we stayed at.
Oh, with waters.
Yes.
Oh, what did you think of that? Did you go in the waters?
We did.
was lovely.
Wonderful. One of the best places we stayed at, hands down.
Joel Winnett, who's a guest on one of our earliest shows, was in Budapest and had spent quite a bit of time with his wife in the waters. So it's interesting. Here's another location for people who want
Oh yeah.
warm waters
Absolutely.
and mineral baths, which I think are wonderful.
they're all over Iceland. But that was a hotel that
And
had
this
them
is
in
the
particular.
Tunnel of Love.
This is one of the tunnels that connects the fjords together.
Oh, okay.
And they go on for quite a while. That's the
That's
entrance.
the entrance.
Actually, this is from a road that our GPS sent us up. We believe this
Oh,
GPS.
you had GPS up
We
there?
did. We believe
Okay.
it tried to kill us because it sent us up a road that was closed and clearly meant to eliminate the human species.
Okay.
You exaggerate. There's our guidebook.
This is
and
our guidebook, and we found the church on it.
I'm pointing to the church that's on the cover of the guidebook.
Oh, okay.
That's the town of Vik. That was very
What
nice.
about cell phone service? Had it?
We did have it, but we didn't. We did not really turn ours on because
Okay.
it cost quite a bit to do that.
All right, but it was available.
Everyone in Iceland, they joked that they rely on cell phones almost more heavily than we do. It's their primary mode of communication, and in the outskirts of the island, not the outskirts, but in the outside ring of the island where most people live, cell phone service is mandatory. Everyone has it. Everyone has Wi-Fi. In the center of the island, not too many people live there. It's mostly ice.
This is 2 o'clock in the
So it
afternoon.
was pretty modern as
Yeah.
far as communication.
Oh, yes.
Good.
This is just looking out over the ocean from the city of Vik at 2 in the afternoon. The sun is setting. So
Yeah.
that's also Vik. Looks kind of like a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque type situation.
It does.
Yes, very nice. This is the volcano toilet.
We suspect it was a joke, but we never had anyone to explain it to us in context.
Okay.
This was very close by to one of the volcanic geothermal plants. They just had, it was basically a geyser of water that was constantly coming out of the earth, and they had converted it to be like a mock bathroom setup.
Okay.
I don't know that people would use it. The
wouldn't use it.
geothermal plant has bathrooms. It's not like anything like that. I think it was supposed to be a joke, but it does function as a
Did you
bathroom.
find? Oh, wow! Look at this.
Yes, this is one of the larger waterfalls in the country that you could walk right up to the edge and almost you could fall off if you wanted to do it.
And this was Godafoss, the waterfall of the gods.
We have had. Very quickly, I'm sure this is a beautiful waterfall, but we've had many guests who like to do camping.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say it was a hospitable environment for people who wanted to bring tents and camping gear? And
In the summer, Iceland is very camp friendly.
okay, this time of the year, no.
This time of the year, it would be a bit cold.
Okay,
Unless you want to rough it, like
but in-
really rough it.
In the late spring and the summer, it's from about May to September. It's very camp friendly. A lot of almost every town, even the small ones, have a campground or
Okay.
a
Oh,
camper
great.
parking area.
And hiking friendly?
Lovely hiking.
Yes, it looks like it would be.
We did a lot of hiking, even though it was colder and a little bit wetter. We did a lot of hiking. And also a lot of hotels have a special where you can pay a fraction of the price of staying in a room, and they'll let you stay in kind of a communal area in a sleeping bag if the weather is no good.
Okay.
So they're very camping friendly.
And this shot?
This is just Reykjavik.
This is one of the few pictures that he let me take of him.
This was at the burger place that keeps the population.
That keeps the population tracker. You might be hard to read the words on the screen, but he's holding up a sign that says Rudolph.
Yep.
He was eating their special reindeer burger.
Best burger I've ever had in my life.
You liked it?
Oh, delicious.
You know, Finland, they eat reindeer also.
Good for Finland.
The French fries look good.
That was my burger. It was a lamb burger.
Oh, okay. I like a lamb burger.
And this restaurant was famous for having Ronald Reagan eat there.
Oh, okay.
That's who he's on the menu. That's the menu there.
Now, they had at one time a woman president or prime minister.
Currently, they have a female
currently,
prime minister.
okay.
Yes, I believe she's the only openly gay serving.
Oh, I didn't know she was that, but
Yep.
I knew it was
she
a
looks
woman.
very much like Helen Mirren.
She
Oh,
does.
really?
Yeah.
She does.
Yep.
But, okay, this is...
Oh.
Oh!
This is us in
the
our car.
Just in the
How'd you take the picture?
Melanie's phone.
All the pictures that I took were on my phone. Raz had the
Okay.
fancy camera.
More sheep. Oh
This
no,
is-
those are horses.
This is an example of one of the times Raz did most of the driving. I did a little tiny bit, but not much.
Sleeping, you
No, I
Yes.
stayed awake.
Don't lie, you slept.
I
I'm married, I know. I drive.
I
my wife
tried to
says-
stay
and
awake.
and then she'll come.
Where are we? Wait.
Yeah, and I go,
Oh, there's a sheep. I'll take a
why are
picture.
you tired? Don't be silly.
I took this picture out of the car window to show kind of this giant field with a river running through it, and all the way back you could just see, there's horses up towards the front, and then there's like a cutout of the river, and those little white specks are all sheep.
More sheep.
And
They-
that's all one person's territory, so it's just an
Okay.
example of, how easy it is to keep track of
More
your
of that.
stuff.
There's
Isn't
more.
that funny? And I never see in the markets, we see Australian lamb, New Zealand lamb. I never see Iceland lamb.
I don't know if they advertise it as Icelandic.
I don't know, I don't know. You can definitely find Icelandic fish.
Yes.
Icelandic chard.
And you can
Yep.
also find Icelandic yogurt and Icelandic butter.
Skyr. Fantastic.
Skyr, yes.
Oh,
And
really?
Smjor.
It's very thick. It's almost like a Greek yogurt, but it
Okay.
has a slightly different taste to it. But it was very good.
Yeah, they have Icelandic cod is considered a very nice cod.
It is
Fish from up
delicious.
there.
It is delicious.
Oh, but the yogurt you liked, okay.
I liked the yogurt.
And
I'm
it's
a
from
yogurt person,
cow's
though.
milk, or do they use sheep's
I
milk?
think it's sheep's milk.
I do.
Oh, really?
I think
That's
so.
probably...
This is, I think, this is just one of the pretty pictures I took. A
Off
lot
the
of,
ring road, actually.
yeah, a lot of the pictures that I ended up taking out of the car window were things where we couldn't stop for one reason or another, but we thought it was a pretty area.
Yeah, this is one of the fewer times we drove
Oh,
inland. Oh,
pizza.
that's
Pizza.
pizza. Yep.
Okay.
This is that road was the road to this town where we got the pizza. It was one of the inner towns. One
Yes.
of the,
Now, did anyone say to you...
that's our breakfast, which made no sense.
What about, did they... Oh, the bread looks good. What, they
The
have
bread
nice
was
grain
good.
bread.
They did have some grain bread. We don't know what anything else at that table was, though.
Oh, well, I looked some of it up, but grain bread, very thick yogurt, butter, and jam was pretty much their breakfast staple. They didn't
They don't have it,
really have a much bigger
Americanized,
breakfast.
Chickens and eggs weren't big, huh?
No, not big.
This hotel was the second hotel we stayed at, Hotel Tinstall. It was very pretty on the inside, but dark, so it was hard to take pictures.
We were the only ones there.
We were the only
Again,
ones
the-
there.
Oh,
Yep.
you really came at a slow pace.
Oh yeah, but we were fine with that.
It was a very small building. It's the oldest hotel in Iceland. It's a
Oh.
converted Viking
Lodge, I think.
lodge.
Really?
And on the inside, it very much looks like a converted Viking lodge. It was very pretty, very rustic.
Did you discover if they had any mineral type of businesses? Did they drill for oil? Did they have natural gas? Did they have...
There have been companies wanting to prospect for oil. Apparently the Icelandic people aren't interested in that.
Really? Okay.
They do have a lot of. Was it aluminum or tin?
I think tin, but I'm not sure.
I believe something
Okay.
like 30% of the country's population on the eastern side of the island works for either an aluminum or a tin company, which is very, very supportive. They're very community active. And there is also a rock garden as well. Someone collects unique rocks. So when you started talking about any minerals, I was like, oh, well, there was one place. We didn't get to go there, unfortunately, because they weren't open.
Because it looks like it would be a land with a lot of interesting minerals and things.
There's a market for the kind of healthy mineral compounds. There's a very spa-oriented market, I guess you could say. For
no diamond industry or anything that you heard of?
Not that we heard of.
Because, you know, Canada up north in the very cold areas has a diamond business.
Yes.
So
they were big into selling volcano pearls. That was
what are volcano pearls?
They're just round stones made from volcanic ash and residue that had solidified. They're pretty, but they're black and kind of porous.
Okay.
They're not like
expensive.
They're not like pearls, but they call them volcano pearls.
And you said what, Raz? They are expensive.
They are expensive.
Really?
Yeah. One of them, I believe, cost $150, and that was the cheapest we could find it in the airport.
Oh, okay.
The airport was a little overpriced.
Well, no, I'm saying
but it sounds like you had good value with the hotels.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Which can make up, the food sounds expensive, but if your hotels are reasonable, it certainly can make up for expensive food.
One of the things that they do offer there
And I know the airfare is fairly inexpensive.
The airfare is very inexpensive.
a lot of Icelanders take weekend trips to Boston, we found out.
Really?
Yep.
Good to hear. We'll take their money.
One of the things that they do is a lot of hotels, especially the bigger chain hotels, know how expensive the food is, and so most hotel rooms will feature a little kitchenette area with a fridge, a little induction burner, and a microwave, so you can go into town and buy groceries and cook your own food in the hotel room rather than go out to eat every night. Yep.
Yeah, and just about all of them offer breakfast.
Yes.
Only one of them that we stayed at did not, and that was a youth.
Now this is what, Raz's relatives?
Yes, these are my Icelandic relatives. No, this is the one gift shop that we went to. We just couldn't not take a picture of this.
They do have a very Viking mythology is part of their culture, and so they've got the trolls and the ogres and those kind of beasts in their mythology. So this is the inside of one of our hotel rooms.
Actually, this was a house, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. Well, it was considered a hotel, but a lot of hotels were so small that it was just
a house.
A house converted where every room was a hotel room.
It looks comfortable.
Yeah. Well, there's another sheet, but in that last picture, if you notice, they don't have large bed covers.
Okay.
It's almost as if we in every room we went to, it was as if we each had our own personal sleeping bag.
And it's not two beds pushed together. It's one large mattress with two twin-sized comforters.
I've got you.
Yeah.
This
is the horse in the road.
This is a horse that was in the road.
He did not move.
We were afraid that it would kick our car or jump in front of our car or do something to make us have to purchase a horse.
Okay.
So we slowly drove around.
We drove past it very slowly, and I took a picture.
And he didn't react when you beeped the horn?
No.
That was his road, and he was not moving from it.
Okay,
so
I understand.
it's a bit blurry, but...
And this is our last picture. This is...
a quick humorous story about this. When we were staying in a hostel, we stayed in a hostel for one night, and the reason that we booked it rather than one of the other hotels or smaller motels in the area was because we desperately needed to do laundry. We were there for 2 weeks, and we only took about 1 week's worth of laundry to save on how much we had to carry around with us.
It's in German.
The instructions are in German. So
on that note, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to do any laundry. And I'm going to thank both of you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
It really, was it the best birthday present you ever had?
Best anything I've ever had.
Really? Oh
Absolutely.
my God! See,
I've never had a gift like that.
That's a great gift. He owes you one. Where do you want to go?
I haven't decided
Where
yet.
doesn't she want to go?
Maybe New Zealand. I don't know.
A good choice. Thank you again very much. And I hope you'll join us again for another spirited vacation that you share with us.
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you.